Hi, this is Amanda from the 36 Dems. We're interviewing Sarah Nelson for City Council at Large member. Sarah, I'll turn it over to you for an introduction.
Thank you, everyone. Hello. Thank you for taking this time. I'm Sarah Nelson, and I'm running for re-election to the Seattle City Council. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a 35-year Seattle resident, a lifelong Democrat, a wife, mother, small business owner, and I don't know, most importantly, I'm a fighter. I ran in 2021 because I saw a city in need of recovery. Homelessness, gun violence, overdoses were all on the rise, and it just seemed like working people who were just trying to build a life here were struggling because our basic systems were not working anymore. And I do have to say that I am no stranger to recovery. It gave me my life back. And I am fighting for a city where treatment is not the last resort, but it's the first offer, so that people can get their lives back on track as well, instead of cycling through periods of homelessness, perhaps even jail. So I've been focused a lot on that in my time in office. I am here to make a difference, and we do see that it's working. Violent crime is down. We've brought more people inside. I expanded addiction treatment, and investment in affordable housing is at an all-time high right now. As council president, I established a committee to guard against harmful Trump administration policies from the other Washington, and I passed a bill here conforming to the state shield law that will protect people seeking abortion and gender affirming care. I'm proud to be endorsed by Democratic leaders Adam Smith, Senate Majority Leader Jamie Peterson, former governors Christine Gregoire, Gary Locke, and a long list of current and former electeds that's on my website. And the firefighters, the iron workers, plumbers, and pipe fitters, and the Seattle Building and Construction Trades Council endorse me because they know that I show up and I follow through. So I guess I would just say that I ran the first time because I saw what wasn't working, and I'm running again because I see the promise of what can.
Great, thank you. Our first question will be asked by Anita Stoll, a member of our board.
We would like to know more of your why and understand what experiences you bring to this role and how this informs how you will govern. And as the incumbent, we'd like to have you have this focus more on lessons learned from your prior term.
Thank you for that question. I guess what I would have to say is that I've learned that unless we double down on providing greater access to on-demand comprehensive substance abuse treatment, we really won't make much difference or much progress in some of our greatest challenges, being continued homelessness and also housing unaffordability, but also some of our public safety problems, particularly violent crime, gun violence, etc. And in 2020, I checked myself into rehab for alcohol, and I I'm still sober, and I realized that I was able to do that because I had insurance, but that is not the case for everyone. And so that is why I'm so focused on expanding on-demand treatment. And the city of Seattle just has to write a check if people are ready to take that step. I see the fentanyl crisis and and addiction, substance abuse, the ubiquity of very powerful drugs as as at the foundation of many of our other problems when it comes to chronic homelessness and public safety, as I've said. And so we are missing opportunities until we focus on this. And I serve on the Board of Health, the King County Regional Homelessness Governing Board, and I'm doing my best at council to de-siloize our priorities around all of these different, what seem to be disparate issues, and really focus on getting people the help that they so desperately need in this one area, and making sure that 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 we can all share in those benefits, and it's not just the people that can afford treatment. And so that is one huge lesson that I did learn. And then I'll always come back to saying what I do is that as a leader, one has to listen to all perspectives. And I'll just stop talking now. Okay.
Great, thank you. So a little disruptive. Alex is going to ask our second question.
Good afternoon, Council President. Our region faces a housing and homelessness crisis that worsens every year. What changes are you prepared to implement in the short and long term to address housing and homelessness in Seattle?
Thank you. I've touched a little bit on homelessness already, but I will say that we face a housing affordability crisis, and that is despite the fact that I voted to triple the housing levy a couple years ago. That pays mostly for very low or no income level housing. And despite the fact that we do have mandatory housing affordability, which provides for affordable housing production as well, et cetera. And so we have got to look legislatively at what more we can do than providing funds, although I still am supportive of that. That is why I advanced legislation that would allow for the construction of workforce housing, which there's a gap in our provision of workforce housing in the Stadium District. And I took on the port in the Longshore Union, but I thought that it was the right thing to do because we are missing this housing resource, and that housing will be built up to 1,000 units of housing, and 50% has to be at workforce level, 60 to 90% AMI. So legislatively, I support the increasing our capacity for more housing with our comp plan update. And we're just getting started in that, but we have to go big. And I've always been a pro-growth council member when it comes to adding density where we can. And so that is an ongoing process. Direct rental relief to tenants who are behind in their rent. I voted for that in the budget last year, and that is something that we have to do that provides immediate relief. Improving the multifamily tax exemption program so that private developers will be more incentivized to put affordable units in their projects as well, in their residential projects. And let's see, I'm just going through my list here. Oh yeah, finally, we have to make it cheaper and easier to build housing by fixing permitting. That is
Great. Thank you. And our third question will be asked by Toby Thaler.
Hi, Sarah. Seattle is currently not on track to meet its climate goals as stated in its climate action plan. What specific actions will you take to ensure enforceable progress toward carbon neutrality by 2050 and advance environmental justice?
Thank you for that question. And we know that buildings and vehicle and transportation are the two greatest contributors of greenhouse gas emissions, and so we have to focus on those two issues. And so I support putting the agenda of the Green New Deal Advisory Board front and center as we are making further investments. And that was a priority of the last council, and it's gotten, we need to reinforce their priorities. The electrification of our grid to allow for for easier and more accessible electric vehicle charging stations is one small example of what more we need to do. We improved our energy code last year. We updated and then went above the state standards, and we will always and should remain a leader in our energy code when it comes to taking the steps to get damaging emissions out of our system. But let's talk now about transit. We will be renewing our Seattle-specific investments in Metro Transit, and that is something that I will full on support. And then still making sure that we can bring our light rail systems up on board the sooner rather than later, of course, by in making it easier to site and build the stations and the rail that we need throughout the city and the region. So these are some of the examples that I will say. Let's see. We have to, when it comes to our public buildings, we have to just get on board and jumpstart our investments in solar and electric and of community centers and other public buildings, because that is something that we have a couple pilot projects, but we have to increase our investments there as well. And so we really do have to make sure that we have an overarching set of goals and then increase our energy toward getting there. And it's going to take all hands on deck.
Great, thank you. And then our last prepared question will come from Chelsea.
Good afternoon. The current federal administration has shown hostility and taken action against cities and counties with progressive values like ours. How do you anticipate navigating and leading when we face urgent, complex, and dynamic challenges to civil rights, laws, funding, and so on?
I stated in my opening remarks that I, as council president, established a select committee that will enable us to be informed about and prepare for whatever cruel and harmful policies that come down from the other Washington, and I stand by that decision. I also mentioned the legislation that I passed to conform to the Shield Law. But here's what I'll say: the best, not necessarily the best resistance, but I firmly believe that that we have a responsibility as a city when to prove that it is the blue democratic cities on the West Coast that are working well and serving our most vulnerable. That is how we prove Trump wrong and also do the best for our constituents. We have to be constantly ready for what comes down the pike, protecting our investments and our most vulnerable. I have set up a call with our lobbyists, a weekly call with our lobbyists in DC, so that we can have, at least on a week-to-week basis, information about what might be happening. And I'm in constant contact with our city attorney and the city attorney's office has a team of dedicated lawyers that are working with different departments to protect our infrastructure and other investments. Say the same thing about the King County Regional Homelessness Authority. We're looking at losing potentially, we have to do everything we can to safeguard the investments that we get from HUD. And it's just a simple question of always being one step ahead and being prepared to respond to what might happen, but taking proactive steps to protect our most vulnerable at the same time. And that is what I'm doing in my capacity as president, to the extent that I can, within this turbulent and terrible time that we're dealing with chaos coming at us every day.
Thanks, bang on time. That's our 4 initial prepared questions. So now we'll open it up for our board members and board members. If they have follow questions, you'll have a minute to respond to each of those. And it looks like we're kicking off with Alex. Go ahead.
So, Councilmember, in your earlier answers, you mentioned, for example, like the need to address addiction, housing, homelessness, and the need for more services from the city. But as you very well know, the city is currently in a budget deficit. What types of funding would you commit to exploring as council or for this budget session and for budget sessions coming forward to address deficit? Sorry.
I'm sorry. The mayor will be sending down the mid-year supplemental budget at the end it's likely in a month. And he has hinted, so the mayor makes the budget and then the council approves it and makes changes, etc. And that will happen at the mid-year and in the fall. And I say that everything is on the table. I will not say our needs are too great to take anything off the table right now, frankly. And the legislature did provide for another option, which is a public safety sales tax. I know that the mayor has mentioned that in already. So I remain open-minded because we have got a crisis on our hands.
Right. We've got a question from Jack.
Good afternoon. I'd like to follow up on a couple of the questions and your answers. All your answers were quite good. You mentioned our similarity to the other high-valued West Coast cities. They're all very blue, and they all have tremendous issues with homelessness. The federal government is not going to help us for this term. Is there a chance that we could ask our local billionaires to help us with the housing question? one of the basic problems is that poor households are poor and they can't afford housing. So can we ask help from our billionaires? Clearly, the Gates Foundation is trying to save the world, but we just need to get some money into the hands of poor households.
I support that. And like I said, I will not say everything needs to be on the table, and we can and if we're talking about a philanthropic ask, then we have to ramp up our asks. Definitely. We do know that some large corporations do provide for housing. I do believe that Amazon has an affordable housing fund, and or helps with housing projects. Other companies do too as well. I'm not as well versed on that. But we have to ask for everybody for help because we're all in this together. It's all hands on deck. This is our city, and these are our workers, and the companies that operate here depend on having a pipeline of workers at all levels of income. So we have to. So my answer to your question is yes, and we have to also make sure that that we are supporting our very, very small businesses, because that is where so many of our workers are employed.
Great, thanks. We've got about 3 minutes left. We've got a couple questions. Toby, your question, go ahead.
There's a lot of evidence that the current tree ordinance is not actually protecting trees. Will you support a small bill to fix some of those problems?
I do believe that we have got to revisit some of those provisions, and I will say yes. However, I have not seen the small bills, and I've learned that it is necessary to know the details before taking a position. So it is clear that you were there as I was, and I feel like we did not hear all of the concerns of the Urban Forestry Commission, and so it is reasonable to go back and fix some things, but I don't know what those things to be fixed are. So I will have to see the details going forward.
Great, thanks. And Alex, go ahead. I think for our last question.
Okay, and going back to the budget question, so you had said that everything and anything is on the table in terms of new revenue, but are there specific forms of new revenue that you are prioritizing or that you want to see happen in this upcoming budget cycle?
With like I said, I have traditionally been one of those people that says we have to make sure that our existing investments are producing the outcomes that we want before looking for more revenue, and I have not changed on that. However, I do recognize that that we could be in a position to require more revenue. And so I know that there are some council members that have suggested last budget season there was the municipal capital gains tax that was offered there, but the legislature just now increased the statewide capital gains tax. So I am saying with all honesty that I believe that we have got to weigh all options, because we are in a situation where we have got to take care of our people, but we're facing diminished support from the federal government.
All right, thank you very much. That was great and succinct. We actually have time for one quick one, or I'll go ahead and give you a minute to cover anything that you got cut off on, or you want to make sure to cover, or sum up. Sarah, I'll turn that over to you then for a minute.
I have, what I would like to just say is that I have spent my life voting for and supporting Democratic candidates and causes, not just with my vote, but with money and a whole bunch of free beer. And so it is very, it would be very meaningful for me to have your endorsement, because it would be a demonstration that our values are in line and aligned, and I do believe that we share the same values and the values with what that makes Seattle such a great place to live, and that is what is going to get us through this turbulent time. We don't change our values. We protect our people, and stand for what we believe is right. And I am here to do that for the city going forward. And it's about being strong and being united and working all together on what is most needed to move forward. I believe that the city of Seattle has made some progress, has made progress since I was first elected. And then,
Go ahead and finish your thought. Yeah,
yeah, and I'm running to keep that momentum going. Thank you.
great. Thank you so much. That concludes our interview. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.